I have loved redwood trees ever since I first saw one when I was 6 years old. Walking through a forest of them feels like being surrounded by ancient gods, like you could reach out, lay your hand on their bark, and feel time itself at your fingertips. I have a vivid memory of seeing one that had at some point been hollowed out by a wildfire and still carried the darkened scars of it. Little me marveled at how it was still standing, and how despite its blackened insides, I couldn't even see the top of it, it was so tall. I only lived in the California Bay Area for 3 years of my life, and I've never been back. I have spent the vast majority of my life in completely different countries to these giants, but the experiences I had running through Muir Woods and climbing inside a fallen redwood have stuck with me. I also love Minecraft, although that came a few years later. I love many aspects of the game. I truly believe it's one of, if not the, best game of all time. The thing that initially got me hooked on it, though, was the building, and so very recently, I had an idea. What if I built an entire redwood forest in Minecraft? This is the spot where I've decided I'm going to build a redwood forest. As you can see, it is a massive meadow. It is like truly absolutely massive. You can see it stretches all the way out this way. It's a really cool bit of terrain generation. To be honest, I really like it. There's this really deep chasm through the middle of it where one of my friends is going to be doing one of her big builds, so I'm going to stay out of that for the most part, but the rest of this meadow, and maybe up this mountain, is going to be redwood forest, and it's going to stretch all the way down to this village over here as well. This is going to be where there's like a visitor center type of thing, and probably out to this outpost, and then I'm probably going to remove the island here as well and make this into like a beach, kind of like Muir Beach. As you can see, I've already cleared some of the flowers off of the meadow, mostly just over here and over in this direction where I'm going to be building some of the first trees, I think. And I've also done a bit of resource gathering. Not that much, but it'll be enough to last me for a while, I think. I've got so much cinnabar. I had to fly far out for it because there's not like a super nearby to spawn sulfur cave, because we've been playing on this since obviously before 26.2 updated, but I realized that cinnabar is going to be a super valuable resource for this build specifically. This area is actually quite far from my base. We're like, I think about 8k out from spawn, and my base is like a 1,000 blocks from spawn-ish, so I think we're about 7 to 8k out from spawn, which is quite a ways, but the Nether Highway is efficient, so it's fine. I have done some planning already, just on what I kind of want the trees to look like, and I've been experimenting with what materials I want to build them out of, things like that. So I'll jump over into my creative world and show you what I've been working on. The main reason I'm really making these videos is mostly to keep track of this project for myself and keep a record of it, because it's by far the biggest build I've ever attempted in survival Minecraft by like a lot. But yeah, this is my creative world. Excuse the mess. I do a lot of random movement practice in here as well, and then I don't bother to clean up after myself, so there's a lot of stuff around. But this was my first attempt at kind of just sketching out kind of what I wanted the redwood trees to look like. And I actually ended up not liking the acacia wood in here as much. I liked the mangrove better. I liked the darker red better. So I think I'm going to keep it to mostly mangrove and like cinnabar, but with just these little orange highlights here and there using like fences and stuff. And then obviously it might get, and it'll get a little bit oranger maybe towards the top as well. And then in this attempt here, I tried to work in some tuff. And while I don't like how the tuff itself looks very much, I think I will use some mossy cobblestone and things towards the bottom of the tree, because they're so old and they're so big that you get lichen and moss and stuff growing all over the base of them, and higher up, but mostly around the base, which makes it look a little bit more gray-brown towards the base rather than red, or rather than orange, really. I'm also not completely satisfied with how the leaves look on these yet, but that's something I'll work on when I actually start building the trees on the server in earnest. This is a redwood stump that I made. I was trying to play around with how just like a stump of one of the giant trees would look. And this is where I realized that I really like the mossy cobblestone incorporated in. I think it works really well, and I think it looks good. So I'll probably be doing that. And I do think that cinnabar is actually going to end up making almost a nice gradient between the mangrove and the mossy cobblestone, but I'll have a play around with that later. Over here, I have the beginnings of a Douglas fir, which I'm actually changing the entire tack that I'm going with here. I think there's going to be more pale oak wood and less jungle wood in it. But it was the beginning of a Douglas fir because I don't just want to build a bunch of redwoods. I want to simulate the entire ecosystem of a redwood forest, down to the flowers, down to the different areas, how it changes with altitude, and what like flowers grow near rivers and stuff. I'm definitely going to add some rivers in, which will be really cool. This is a creative mode copy of me and my friend's server's seed, which I was using to kind of just sketch out the first trees that I wanted to put in and figure out how I wanted them to go. So you can see them in the background right there. And although this will be in forest as well when I end up actually building the entire thing, I think this gives a nice like starting view of the first trees. I want to build so that each time I finish something, it looks like a almost complete build in and of itself, and then I'm just expanding that as I go. So I want it to look nice regardless of whether the whole forest is done yet or not. So given that I kind of have it sketched out, I think the next thing for me to do is get back on the server and start building these first trees. I've been playing around with what kind of color palette I want to use for the Douglas fir. So these are all of the potential blocks I've been thinking about using as part of the Douglas fir. And then this right here is what I decided to use for the final palette. All right, so I think I'm pretty much done building these first four main trees. There's a few things I want to touch up, but I'll fix that later. I think it's more me being a perfectionist than anything, especially with the leaves. Leaves on trees are actually really, really hard to do. They really are. But a couple of interesting things happened in the process of building these trees. One of them being I had to go deep slate mining because I realized I had not brought any deep slate with me, and I wanted to potentially use some in the Douglas fir I was building. And I found, while I was mining for it, deep slate emerald ore. Really exciting. Really, really exciting. So I've silk touched that, and I think one of my friends is gonna build a little like shrine to it. So that was fun. We've also had a little bit of a delivery of some azalea leaves because one of the other people on the server had some in excess and asked if I wanted them, and of course the answer was yes, because I'm definitely gonna need more. This is a massive project. And the other thing that happened was that I went to a woodland mansion, and now I have a bunch more allays, which is great because I can use them to help set up some farms and stuff, which will be fantastic. Now, the next thing that I need to do here is honestly, I think, going to be more challenging than building the big trees in the first place. And that is building the other layers of a redwood ecosystem into here. Because the thing is, right? The trees are really a very small part. There's a main attraction, but they're a very small part of what actually goes into a redwood forest. It's divided into multiple layers. So what we have here is the canopy, right? This is the very top level, the parts that get all the sunlight, the really tall trees, what we think about when we think about a redwood forest. But within it, there are a bunch of other things. So the next layer is a layer just below the canopy, and it's made up of some shorter trees. So things like tan oak and California bay laurel and things like that are smaller, more spindly trees that just kind of live in the gaps between the big ones and try and catch some of the light from the sun. Below even that, there's a layer of shrubs. So that's where things like, for example, there's a very specific type of I've forgotten the name. My brain's saying rhododendron. I think it's a rhododendron. There's a very specific type of rhododendron that grows in redwood forests. So that's going to need to go in, as well as there's other types of shrubs too. But that's the one that stands out to me as it's going to bring some color, I think, to it. So that'll be great. And then at the very, very bottom, right under the trees, there's the undergrowth, right? And that's made up of ferns and fungi and a little white flower called redwood sorrel that's really cool. And I want to incorporate all of that. So I need to figure out how I'm going to actually do that. When it comes to some of the things, right, like the redwood sorrel at the very bottom, I'm thinking what I'm gonna use is a combination of the azure bluets and the wildflowers. Now, the wildflower flowers have a little bit too much yellow, but because they're like low to the ground, I think it gives more of a vibe of the redwood sorrel. Whereas the azure bluets, I don't even know if I'm saying those right. I don't know if I've ever said them out loud. They're taller, right? But they give more of like a redwood sorrel like color-ish, kind of. I'm trying to do the closest I can to actually building this because obviously we have a limited amount of flowers in Minecraft. And then I'll mix that in with some grass to kind of try and mimic the greenery, or some bushes to try and mimic the greenery of redwood sorrel because most of it's green. Most of it's not the actual flowers themselves. And then I'm gonna need to farm a bunch of ferns as well. I've farmed no ferns, so that's probably gonna need to be a little bit of a resource collecting mission before I start actually building the undergrowth. But I think I'm going to do this in a top-down manner. So the first things I need to build are California bay laurels and like tan oaks, that layer of shorter trees that just try and kind of crowd in and get the sunlight. And what I'm thinking for this is potentially, where have I put it? A mix of probably some like tough wall for like thicker trunks. And then potentially I might try and just use some like oxidized copper bars combined with leaves to try and make some really like spindly little things. Because I think that would be a really cool vibe. And then I'm probably going to use mostly dark oak for the leaves, maybe some oak in there as well, some regular oak. I feel like that'll end up looking really good if I can pull it off. So yeah, what I'll do next is I will get rid of the rest of the flowers surrounding these trees. Then I'll try and start building some of the upper shorter the like shorter trees, and then I think I'm gonna use azalea as for like some like the flowering azalea for some like rhododendron bushes, and maybe a few other types of just generic shrub, and then I'll have to get started on the bottom, so I'll need to farm a whole bunch of ferns and things. So this is gonna take me a while. I think this will actually take me longer than building the main trees will. So I'll get to it. Okay, well, I think it's looking pretty good. Um, it's looking, yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. I'm almost wondering though if I should be making the trees more dense, like the smaller ones, the understory, potentially even adding more bigger ones, but I'm not. I might add a few more smaller trees before I'm done, but I don't think I'm gonna add any more bigger trees at this stage because I think it'll really take the forest expanding for me to tell whether the big trees need to be more dense or not. On the subject of the flowers, though, I had an epiphany, which was, to be honest, I think the pink mixed with the like wildflowers here and there looks more like redwood sorrel than just the wildflowers and the osier bluets. I think it does. So I think I'm gonna go through and add a whole bunch of that because redwood sorrel has more of a pink tint to it than a yellow tint. But I completely forgot that cherry blossoms exist in Minecraft, or the pink blossoms, whatever they're called, the pink petals, yeah, and from the cherry blossom biomes. So I went and collected some of those, and I'm gonna I think replace them with that. I do like how the ferns look. I do think the vegetation needs to be a little bit denser, so I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna put more podzol in, and more moss in, although the moss is looking pretty decent, I think. And then I think I'm pretty much done with this section. It's just I think adding a few more trees, replacing these flowers, and finishing up like the ground and adding maybe even more ferns, and then I think I'm done. Just a few more flowers here and there, I think. One or two. You can never have too many ferns in a redwood forest. And I think we might want just a bit more lighting. I have it in the biggest redwood, but I haven't added any in these ones. I don't know if I like it though. Maybe just a couple tucked into the Douglas fir? Like one right here, maybe? That's not bad. Guys, I think it's done. I think it's done for now. Let me show you. through it. You can see all the way up through the trees. And all the flowers. I'm really genuinely so pleased with how this part of the forest came out. I took a little bit of a leap of faith with it, just planning out where everything went and then seeing if I could figure out the structure as I went along, and I think it paid off. I really do. I really do. It looks so good. I'm so pleased. I'm especially proud of the big redwood. I think the structure of that turned out so well, and of the Douglas fir, because I had never even built a model Douglas fir before. This was just me, just from nothing, coming up with this entire thing, and I'm genuinely so pleased with how it came out. So I am just absolutely thrilled with how this went so far. I think next time I'll probably be expanding it a little bit, making another patch. Potentially seeing if I need to make this part a little bit denser, or if this is going to be okay as I start expanding it in terms of the density of the trees. And maybe, just maybe, I'll get started on adding the river. We'll see! But thanks for tagging along if you made it to the end of this. I appreciate it, and hopefully you enjoyed. See ya!